The only certainty in life is death. And yet for so many people, this is one of the least considered and discussed subjects in their daily existence. Our lives are gripped by the relentless motions of work, family, education, business, money and travel, not to mention the distractions of food, drink, sport, love, art and entertainment. Meanwhile, death approaches us closer and closer. In fact, every day you live, you are one day closer to death. In this special episode of A Simple Question, we join members of the public in cities around the world to think about one universal subject which unites us all, death. And the first question we in London and our colleagues in other cities asked was this: if you found out you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do today? Here's what they said. What would you do if you found out you were going to die tomorrow?
I'd run to my family, say goodbye, settle any outstanding disputes with anybody, just things like that.
Because I believe in God, I would pray that I actually make heaven, and I would gather my family together, the people I actually really do love, together, and just have my last few moments with them. Just, discuss and talk, probably confess a few sins or two.
Go and see my kids and give them fantastic big hugs. And tell them Mummy loves them and write them letters so that they can read them when they're older.
I would probably just go back to my country to see my parents.
Gosh, what a question. I would go home and meditate.
I would go rock climbing.
I would be very sad, because I know that whatever it is that I've had my sweat to put out to bring to this world will be nothing.
I think that I would call my loved ones and say, it has been good living with you.
I would first of all put my books right with God and make sure that I'm in proper books, that I repent of all my sins.
I think that there is a life beyond this world, another experience, but it is the unknown. Nobody really knows. It is something that science and everybody is searching for.
What would you do if you found out you were going to die tomorrow?
I would probably try to do what the things that I like most and with the people that I like most.
I would spend it writing, because writing is what I do. That's what I came to New York to do, and that's the program I'm in. I'm at Hunter, and this is my senior year. I graduated in May. So I would spend it doing what I came to New York to do, which is write.
With my wife, whom I love dearly. We've been married for 42 years and been together for 46, and she's beautiful and wonderful, and that's what I want to spend my time with.
Yes, we should all prepare ourselves, and I think we should fix our act.
If I never prayed, then I would start. If I never gave to charity, then I would do so.
I would do more and more prayers, and I would do good and ask for Allah's forgiveness.
I would do more good things and less bad things.
I would straight away walk around the streets of Cairo with no fear of holding the Rabba sign, and instead of doing this, I would do that. Since I am going to die anyway, I would die free.
Of course, there are many people who think about death regularly, and some go as far as studying the only available authority on the subject, and that is religion. In Western countries, we tend to hear the Judeo-Christian narrative about death and the afterlife. But on this program, we pose the questions to a scholar of the world's fastest growing religion, Islam.
If I find out that I'm going to die tomorrow, believe me or not, I feel a bit relieved that I am going to somehow be free of all the responsibilities, worries, concerns of this world. And also I will try to prepare myself a little bit for the journey ahead, which I'm going to have from this world, being born to another world, and somehow trying to deal with all the responsibilities and dues that I have towards other people. These are the things that I suppose I will do when I listen that I'm going to die tomorrow, and probably a little bit sense of regret that I have not used the blessing of life the way I had to, and probably I did do lots of squandering and wasting about my time, my hours, my days, and my weeks and years. I believe everyone should think about the moment of death. Sooner or later it will come, and we have to set out on a journey which is predestined for us. By not thinking about it, by forgetting about it, we are not helping ourselves. We are only ignoring a very decisive factor in our life. Rather, by reflecting on it, we may become more realistic. Our decisions, our aspirations, our ambitions will become more realistic. And this is something that we have to certainly try to bring home to our souls and our hearts.
So, our views from the expert. We moved on to another question, which is really at the heart of the whole discussion. What do people think will happen when we die? Here's what the public said. What do you think will happen after we die?
I definitely think there's something else, but I'm just not sure what exactly, but there definitely is something else.
Well, the universe is massive, isn't it? You know, I think the Australian scientists reckoned a few years ago that there are more stars than what there are grains of sand on this planet. I mean, you just can't imagine the vastness of the universe. And it's all designed. So maybe our purpose is to colonise the entire universe. But we need to behave a little bit better than what we are doing at present.
I want to believe that there's something after death, but I'm not religious, so it's kind of complicated.
I don't know, I do believe in hereafter, and I mean, I think the whole idea of it's nice that everyone, they all get to go their own fate, so if you believe in it or not, but I do, so.
Depends. If you believe the next world is you being born again as someone else, then you have a new identity, something different. It's not going to be you anymore. And the memory of now wouldn't be there. But if you believe there's a heaven, that's what I believe in. I think that, you know, it's just your soul and nothing is there. It's just you and God, basically.
I think it's probably the end. In fact, I'm very sure it's the end, yes.
I believe death is the end of it, but your hereafter is the way you live in your friends' minds.
Of course, I don't know how life after death is. But I think that after here, there should be paradise.
I suppose there will be enjoyment or suffering, of which I wouldn't love to suffer. I would, of course, love enjoying in the next world.
I believe that you have to make the most of every moment, every second, and keep your important affairs in order. Whoever knows when he will die will know how to live.
What do you think will happen after we die?
My personal belief is hopefully some kind of heaven. That's probably why I try and live the best life that I can, in the hope that afterwards I'll be rewarded for it.
From what I understand about the afterlife, it's a joyous place. It's a place that you're supposed to be relieved from your everyday worldly stresses and be able to finally relax.
So I definitely believe in the afterlife. I'm someone that I definitely believe in God, and I believe in the Bible, and I think that the Bible teaches that there's a heaven and a hell, and the way that one gets to heaven or hell is by believing in Jesus Christ.
There is heaven and there is hell. What you do in this life is what defines the path you go in the afterlife.
Everyone is judged for what they have done, their sins, or by their good deeds.
If I do good, I would be more happier man in the afterlife, opposite to what I'm living today.
As the Quran states, judgment is divided into two stages, one in the grave and the other is in the afterlife, heaven or hell.
An interesting range of views and commentary from cities around the world. We invited our expert to comment on what the public feel about this quite sensitive question.
What will happen after we die? Based on what we are told in scriptures and by the prophets. We are certainly not going to perish after death. The life will continue. Human being is an eternal creation, not eternal in the beginning, but eternal in the end. So we are never going to perish. We are going to travel from one stage to another stage. As the Quran mentions, "O man, you are traveling towards your Lord, stage after stage, until you meet him." And that meeting would be in another plane of creation on the day of resurrection. So what will happen after death is just we enter a world of new wonders. In the same way that when we came out to this world from the wombs of our mothers, we came into a world of wonders, we are certainly going to go in a world full of more wonders, more fascinations, amazements, and this is something that we have to prepare ourselves for. Death is not a scary thing. We are not going to perish. What is dumped under the earth is our body. That is what we are scared of, and our body, of course, would not sense anything afterwards. What will come towards us after we die is a world of wonderful fascinations, something which cannot be contained in our imaginations in this world. And therefore, we have to somehow prepare ourselves and be on our alert, so that when it comes, we are not taken by surprise and we are not afraid of it.
Not everyone is afraid of death, but many people are. We put the question, why is that the case, to citizens around the world.
Why are most people afraid of death?
The unknown, I'd say. Like, no one knows what's going to happen after or when it happens.
I think it's because with the, we live in such a commercialized world, globalized world, in the sense that we consume a lot and we hang on to tangible things that are not actually meant to be held on to. So things of the world like house, love, vanity, all the things, we hang on to them and we just don't want to lose them when we die. That's one of the things you lose. But with me, I'm not fearful because I came into the world with nothing. I might as well leave without nothing.
Because they haven't got anything to look forward to?
Well, because life for many is still very good and they don't want to die. I don't want to die. I'd like to live for a good long time, but healthily. But it's the unknown as well, of course.
It's a big unknown quantity, isn't it? I mean, it's not a pleasant process, dying. I mean, a lot of death is painful.
Imagine going into a world and you're not sure of what's there. So I think getting to say that I'm not going to see my peers, my mates, my family, that's tricky.
I believe if there is anything that is so scaring to humanity is the topic of death. No one wants to associate themselves with anything to do with the death.
It is something unknown, something that still doesn't have a basic and logical explanation, not even science. It is something hidden. Nobody knows what he will face.
Why are most people afraid of death?
I think the unknown. From my personal experience in nursing as well, when people are dying, it's usually, the questions they ask are usually to do with not knowing what's going to come next. So I definitely think it's the unknown.
I think it's genetic. I think we're born with an innate survival skill, and we're predisposed to try and stay alive, just like animals do. Anything on this earth, everything's fighting for life. So I think that's kind of an inherent feature that we're given with at birth.
Because it's terminal. I mean, if you really love life, then you want to make every moment count. So if you get caught short, let's say, because you die prematurely, you're losing out on being able to experience everything life has to offer. If your philosophy is that you really are here to live as long as you can and experience and love every piece of this earth, then there should be a tremendous fear of death, because you don't want to leave what's here.
I think it's easy to think and believe that this life is certain and that we're guaranteed a certain amount of time, and I think it's more sure. And nobody really knows definitively what's going to happen after we die.
The world is a place where people tend to forget about the afterlife and get too involved in life, worrying about income and financial issues and things like that. The further you are from God, the more you'll fear life.
Anyone who is far from God will fear death. So the further you are, the more you'll fear death.
Because they do bad things. If they did good, they will always want to meet their Creator.
What makes people fear death is that they don't remember or expect it when it struck. It's a sudden thing.
Different cultures, a common fear. What is the psychology or the reason behind our fear of death? We invited our expert to comment.
Most people are afraid of death because they are unaware of the nature of death. They think that death is the end of everything. They think that death is destruction, annihilation, the total annihilation of human existence. And this is why they are scared of. Sometimes, of course, the horror is because of what comes after death, for those who do not believe that death is total destruction, because they're afraid that they will meet the consequences of their actions. Now, of course, we always have to be on guard about the consequences of what we do in this world. However, death is not something which would bring us immediately to a world of consequences and punishments and such things. It is just a new birth, something which brings us to a new world, to a new understanding of existence, a new understanding of God. And that is not something that we have to be terrified of.
Despite the certainty of death, why in our daily lives and interactions do we tend to forget that one day we will die? Here are the views of the public from cities around the world.
Why in our daily lives and interactions with others do we tend to forget the fact that one day we will die?
Because we're so preoccupied with our daily lives, it just isn't a consideration that it will happen unless we're personally affected by someone close to us and it becomes real.
Well, there's something wrong with our mentality, because I think the human situation is that we tend to think, oh, it won't happen to me. But it's the only certain thing that we've got on this planet. You know, there's no question we're going to die.
It's because time waits for nobody, so we're so consumed by how much we have on our list. So as a woman, you're meant to go to school, get married at some point, have kids. So there's a time for everything, and we forget that at any point our life could just be cut short. So we just want to do as much as we can get done. So I think that's what makes you forget.
Well, one really wants to put it out of one's mind. I mean, I had a birthday recently which got me much nearer to 50 than I wanted to be, and it did start to bring the whole thing home to me that I was halfway through. And yes, one needs to just try and live for the day, and you don't really want to be thinking about when you're going to die. So I can see that people put it to the back of their minds.
Because we don't want to think about that. So we want to live as if we don't die, and then you see that people that are afraid to die the most are actually old people, because they know that death is coming.
I think it's a social thing, is that it has become a taboo subject, and therefore people don't think about it, they don't want to talk about it or think about it, and it's a terrible situation.
The world has both the evil and the good. Now, in that world, you have to survive somehow, and I think that what we usually think about as people doing bad to others is because they are trying to find a place for themselves as well.
No one ever wishes for something bad, and to us death is something bad. So you always opt for something good and you say, I'll keep living on. That's why when they tell you such and such a person is dead, that's when you get to think about it twice. But otherwise, everyone believes in having a good life.
People love to be happy. We were all born to be happy. Actually, the point in life is happiness. And the point in death is the complete opposite of happiness. So no one under the sun would want to imagine that something is going to come and is going to take them away from this happiness.
Due to our day-to-day responsibilities, we tend to forget these kind of things.
Before getting closer to Jesus Christ, I was very afraid. I used to be very afraid of death, and I used to think about death all the time. Later on, when I got closer to Jesus and when I got to know Him, my life changed. And now, I don't think about death anymore. I am not afraid of dying, because we are all going to die at some point.
Why in our daily lives and interactions with other people do we tend to forget the fact that one day we will die?
I think it's because we become very busy in our lives, so we sort of forget about what's sort of waiting for us in the future, just preoccupation with everything.
I don't know if we forget it or if we just don't want to think about it. I think most people find it depressing to think about something like that, whereas it's an obvious end to all things, but it's not something you really want to dwell on. You want to dwell on the here and now instead of the inevitable future.
I think that if you're sure about the next life, if you have confidence in what's going to happen, you do think about it more. I think about it, definitely. But if you don't have certainty of where you're going to go or what's going to happen, you don't really want to think about it. You know, this life, you have a decent idea that, you know, tomorrow you're going to wake up, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to your job, do your thing, you know what's going to happen, but you can have some level of certainty, but people don't like to think about things they're not sure about, especially things that you can be afraid of.
No one knows the unknown except Allah. I can't tell what's in you or what you intend to do. I have only what I see by which I can judge you, whereas Allah knows what's in you.
They forget because they are far from God. When Allah is happy with a soul, He gives him blessings.
Because we fear the unknown, we don't like even thinking about it.
Daily duties makes us forget. We get too involved in life and leave Judgment Day to its time.
Some people destroy things purposely, but everything is recorded in a book.
Different countries, different cultures, but very human responses from one and all. Why is it that we tend to forget the certainty of our own death? We gave the last word to our expert.
Reflection about death should not be casual, should not be something that we sometimes have and sometimes don't have. The remembrance of death should be something which we have to place in some corner of our mind. And then in everything that we do, we have to bring that factor, that remembrance into account, take it into account. And when we want to make any decision, we think that, okay, I take this decision based on many different factors, and one of them is that I'm going to die soon and leaving this world.
In a world where religion and justice, ethics and spirituality are becoming ever more important, death is surely a subject which should be at the forefront of discussion. Ignoring it is easy, but risky. And for many people, the question remains, if you have ignored the afterlife and there's a chance you're wrong, then shouldn't you start preparing?